I had just turned 35. Walking into my own house, I was greeted by a room full of people and thought my wife had arranged a surprise birthday party. My heart swelled with joy until I saw Lindsay standing there with an envelope, that strange smile on her face. Something felt off when I noticed it was only her family arranged in a semicircle, expectant looks on their faces. No friends, just her relatives all watching me like I was about to perform. Where was this going? Before I dive into what might be both the worst and most transformative day of my life, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button to join me on this journey. Lindsay and I met 5 years ago at a tech conference in San Francisco. I was presenting my work on a new software application, and she approached me afterward with insightful questions. With her striking blue eyes, sharp intellect, and confident demeanor, I was immediately captivated. She worked in marketing for a financial services company, which I later discovered was owned by her father, Robert Williams, a prominent figure in the banking industry. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. I fell hard for her energy, her ambition, and what I thought was genuine affection for me. Despite my modest background as the son of a high school teacher and a nurse from a small town in Oregon, Lindsay never seemed to mind the difference in our upbringings, at least not openly. The first time I met her family at their sprawling mansion in Connecticut, there were subtle signs I chose to ignore. Her father shook my hand firmly while assessing me with cool, calculating eyes. Her mother, Diane, was polite but distant, asking pointed questions about my family and career prospects. Her 2 sisters, Amanda and Paige, whispered and giggled when they thought I could not hear, making comments about my off-the-rack suit and less than prestigious university. Still, love blinded me. I proposed to Lindsay after a year, offering her my grandmother ring with its modest diamond. She accepted with tears in her eyes, though she later exchanged it for something more substantial, claiming it was just more her style. I told myself it was fine that it made her happy, and that was what mattered. Our wedding was extravagant, entirely planned, and paid for by her family. My parents and small circle of friends were seated far from the main table, almost an afterthought. During his speech, Robert spoke at length about Lindsay choosing an unconventional path, emphasizing the word in a way that made everyone at their table laugh knowingly. I brushed it off, focusing instead on the beautiful woman who had become my wife. The early years of our marriage were happy, or so I believed. We bought a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood, not quite as lavish as what Lindsay was used to, but substantial for a software engineer doing well in his career. I cooked dinner most nights while Lindsay worked late. We traveled during holidays, took weekend trips to wine country, and talked about our future together. Everything shifted when I decided to leave my secure job at a large tech company to start my own venture. Lindsay initially supported my decision, but her enthusiasm waned when I turned down a position at her father company. Robert had offered me a role with an impressive title and salary, but it felt like a consolation prize, a way to keep me under his control. I wanted to build something of my own, to prove my worth on my own terms. That first year of building my startup was challenging. I worked long hours, invested most of our savings, and focused intensely on making it successful. Lindsay grew increasingly resentful of my dedication to the business. What she once called ambition, she now labeled obsession. The late-night conversations about our dreams faded into tense silences and curt exchanges about household expenses. Lindsay began spending more time with her family, attending social functions without me. She would return home smelling of expensive perfume and alcohol, dismissive of my questions about her evening. When we did talk, she often compared me unfavorably to her father associates, particularly a financial director named Jack Sullivan. Jack this, Jack that. How Jack had just bought a vacation home in the Hamptons. How Jack had been featured in Forbes. How Jack understood the importance of work-life balance despite his success. I tried everything to reignite the spark between us. I surprised her with weekend getaways, cooked elaborate meals, bought thoughtful gifts. Nothing seemed to penetrate the wall she had built. Our physical intimacy dwindled until it was non-existent. Lindsay began sleeping in the guest bedroom, claiming my late-night work disrupted her sleep. But I noticed she only came home well after midnight most days anyway. One evening I overheard her on the phone in our backyard, voice low but intense. "I am just waiting for the right moment," she said. "It will all be over soon, I promise." When I asked her about it later, she dismissed it as work stress, a difficult client she was trying to manage. I wanted to believe her, but doubt had firmly taken root. The signs of trouble grew more obvious, impossible to ignore. Lindsay started receiving mysterious text messages that made her smile in a way she never did with me anymore. When I entered a room, she would quickly lock her phone or switch screens. Her work meetings increasingly took place during evenings and weekends. Once I found a receipt for dinner at an expensive restaurant on a night she claimed to be working late at the office. My startup was struggling, which only intensified the tension between us. Investors were hesitant, funds were running low, and I was working around the clock to keep things afloat. Instead of support, Lindsay offered criticism. "You should have taken the job with Daddy," she said during one particularly heated argument. "At least then you would be a respectable failure instead of just a failure." Her words stung, but I channeled that pain into determination. I refined my business plan, networked relentlessly, and finally secured a meeting with a prominent venture capitalist who showed genuine interest in my software platform. Things were looking up professionally, even as my marriage continued to crumble. One night, Lindsay left her laptop open while she took a shower. A notification popped up from Jack Sullivan. The preview showed enough for my stomach to drop. "Cannot wait to see you again tomorrow." Last night was amazing. The pieces were finally coming together in the most painful way possible. I confronted her when she emerged, asking directly if she was having an affair. Her denial was immediate but unconvincing. She accused me of spying, of being paranoid and controlling. The argument escalated until she stormed out, not returning until the following afternoon, offering no explanation for her whereabouts. In the weeks that followed, Lindsay grew even more distant. She took business trips that her company website never mentioned, received packages she quickly hid, and spent hours on the phone in hushed conversations that ended abruptly when I approached. The woman I married had become a stranger, sharing my living space. Despite this, I still held on to hope. We had built a life together, made promises, shared dreams. I could not simply walk away without trying everything possible to save our marriage. I suggested counseling. Lindsay agreed half-heartedly, attending 2 sessions before declaring it a waste of time. The therapist did not understand people like her, she said, whatever that meant. My 35th birthday approached amidst this emotional turmoil. Lindsay had been unusually attentive in the days leading up to it, asking about my schedule, ensuring I would be home by 6 in the evening. I dared to hope this meant a reconciliation, perhaps a genuine effort to celebrate and reconnect. The morning of my birthday, I woke alone in our bed. Lindsay had left a note saying she was preparing a surprise and would see me that evening. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of optimism. Maybe we could find our way back to each other after all. At work, things were finally looking up. The venture capitalist I had met with called to confirm his interest in investing a substantial amount in my company. This could be the breakthrough I had been working toward. I could hardly wait to share the news with Lindsay, imagining how it might change her perspective on my career choices. I left the office early, buoyed by professional success and cautious hope for my personal life. As I turned onto our street, I noticed several cars parked outside our house. Lindsay had mentioned a surprise, but this looked like a full gathering. My heart lightened at the thought that she had organized a birthday party for me after all. Perhaps she had invited my friends, my family. Perhaps this was her way of showing she still cared. I parked and approached our front door with a mix of curiosity and anticipation. When I opened it, the scene inside was not what I expected. About 15 people stood in our living room, but I recognized none of my friends or family members. Instead, it was Lindsay's entire family, along with a few faces I vaguely recalled from her company functions. They were arranged in a loose semicircle, glasses of champagne in hand, all eyes turning to me as I entered. Lindsay stepped forward from the group, looking more beautiful than I had seen her in months. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her black dress clearly new and expensive. In her hands was a large manila envelope. The smile on her face sent a chill through me. It was not warm or loving, but triumphant, almost predatory. "Surprise, honey," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the suddenly silent room. "I have a special birthday gift for you." Her father, Robert, stepped closer to her, placing a hand on her shoulder, that same calculating look in his eyes that I remembered from our first meeting. Lindsay extended the envelope toward me. I took it automatically, confusion giving way to a sick feeling of dread as I noted the letterhead of a law firm I did not recognize. The room watched in collective anticipation as I opened it and pulled out the documents inside. Divorce papers already filled out in meticulous detail, waiting only for my signature. "Surprise," Lindsay repeated, her voice harder now. "I am leaving you for someone who is not a disappointment." As if on cue, Jack Sullivan stepped out from the kitchen doorway, a smug smile on his handsome face. He moved to stand beside Lindsay, placing his arm possessively around her waist. Robert Williams laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "We never thought she would actually marry someone so beneath her," he announced to the room, raising his champagne flute. "But she has finally come to her senses. I knew that startup of yours was going to fail. Jack here knows how to provide the kind of life my daughter deserves." The other family members raised their glasses in agreement. Diane Lindsay, mother, actually winked at me. Her sisters giggled behind their hands. This had been planned, rehearsed even. They had gathered not to celebrate my birth, but to witness my humiliation. The champagne was not for toasting my health, but for celebrating my removal from their family. I stood, frozen divorce papers in hand, as the full impact of what was happening washed over me. This was not just the end of my marriage. This was a calculated public execution of my dignity. In that moment, the depth of their contempt for me, for my background, for my ambitions, was laid completely bare. The pain was searing, unlike anything I had ever experienced. But something else rose alongside it, something unexpected and powerful. A calm clarity descended over me as I looked at these people, these strangers who had never truly accepted me, who had been waiting for this moment, perhaps from the very beginning. Without a word, I walked to the coffee table, picked up a pen, and signed every page requiring my signature. The room went silent, confusion replacing the smug satisfaction on their faces. This was not the reaction they had anticipated. They had expected tears, pleading, perhaps even anger. My composure clearly unsettled them. When I finished signing, I looked up, meeting the eyes of each person in the room one by one. No one could hold my gaze for long. Then I turned to Lindsay and Jack. "Congratulations," I said, my voice steady and clear. "You deserve each other." Robert Williams stepped forward, face flushed. "That is it," he demanded. "Nothing else to say for yourself." I smiled at him, not with warmth, but with something that made him take a small step backward. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you all for showing me exactly who you are. I have been trying to earn the respect of people who were never capable of respecting me. Today you have freed me from that impossible task." I pulled out my phone and made a call while the entire room watched in confused silence. "Sarah," I said when my lawyer answered, "the situation we discussed has happened. Initiate everything we talked about." "Yes, right now." Lindsay's face changed from triumph to uncertainty. "What did you just do?" she asked. "I had suspected something like this might happen," I explained calmly. "The late nights, the text messages, the growing contempt. I had hoped I was wrong, but I prepared anyway. My lawyer has just initiated protective measures for my business assets and intellectual property." "Jack, I suggest you have your financial team look very closely at what Lindsay's father has been telling you about their company health." Jack frowned, looking at Robert, who had suddenly gone pale. "What is he talking about?" Jack asked. I did not wait for Robert's response. I placed the signed divorce papers on the table, took one last look at the life I was leaving behind, and walked out the front door. Behind me I could hear raised voices, questions, accusations. None of it mattered anymore. In my car, the shock finally hit me. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I pulled away from the house that had once been my home. I called my best friend Alex and told him what had happened. "Meet me at the Westfield Hotel," I said, my voice finally breaking. "I need a friend tonight." The week following my birthday apocalypse passed in a blur of meetings with lawyers, realtors, and financial advisors. I moved into a modern apartment downtown closer to my office. My lawyer confirmed that my precautionary measures had worked, protecting my intellectual property and business assets from being considered marital property. The divorce paperwork Lindsay had prepared was actually quite favorable to me, designed for a quick separation rather than a fair division of assets. In her arrogance, she had overplayed her hand. Lindsay called repeatedly, her messages growing increasingly frantic. I did not respond, directing everything through my lawyer. Reports came back that she was furious about my preparation, claiming I had planned the divorce all along. The irony was almost amusing. A month into our separation, my startup received the funding we had been working toward. The venture capitalist who had shown interest followed through with a substantial investment, impressed by our technology and unswayed by my personal circumstances. For the first time in years, I could breathe financially. News of our divorce and the circumstances surrounding it spread through our social circles. Lindsay had expected sympathy, painting herself as the woman who had given a chance to someone unworthy, only to be disappointed. Instead, many were appalled by the cruelty of her birthday ambush. Even some of her longtime friends distanced themselves from her. Meanwhile, I focused entirely on rebuilding. I established a routine: early mornings at the gym, full days at the office, developing our product evenings, reconnecting with friends I had neglected during my marriage. Alex introduced me to his hiking group, and the weekend treks through mountains became a form of therapy, each summit a small victory over my past. 3 months after my birthday, news broke that Williams Financial Services, the company owned by Lindsay's father, was under investigation for financial irregularities. Their stock plummeted overnight. Robert Williams stepped down as CEO pending the investigation. The carefully crafted image of success and propriety the Williams family had maintained for generations began crumbling under scrutiny. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Jack had ended his relationship with Lindsay shortly after the scandal broke. He had apparently been promised an executive position at her father company, a promise that now meant nothing. Lindsay had lost both her lover and her safety net in one swift fall from grace. 5 months after the divorce papers were served, my company launched our software platform to critical acclaim in the tech industry. We were featured in major publications, our user base grew exponentially, and acquisition offers began coming in. The team and I decided to remain independent, but the validation of our work was profoundly satisfying. I had just returned from a celebratory dinner with my team when Alex called. "She is outside your building," he said without preamble. "Lindsay. She has been sitting in her car for over an hour. I thought you should know." My first instinct was to ignore this information, to continue upstairs to my apartment and leave the past where it belonged. But something made me pause. A sense of incompleteness, perhaps. A need for real closure, not the theatrical farce that had been staged on my birthday. I thanked Alex and went back outside. Sure enough, Lindsay's silver BMW was parked across the street. Even from a distance, I could see her slumped against the driver's side window, apparently asleep. Her once immaculate vehicle was cluttered with clothing and takeout containers. As I approached, my phone buzzed with incoming text messages, all from her. "Please answer. I need to talk to you. I am so sorry. Please just give me 5 minutes." The timestamps showed she had been sending similar messages throughout the day, growing increasingly desperate. I knocked gently on her window. She startled awake, eyes wide and red, rimmed her appearance, a shocking contrast to the polished woman who had handed me divorce papers 6 months earlier. Her designer clothes had been replaced by wrinkled, casual wear. Her perfect makeup, absent dark circles prominent under her eyes. She fumbled with the door and stepped out, wobbling slightly. For a moment I thought she might be drunk, but I realized she was simply exhausted. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. "Please." Against my better judgment, I gestured toward a nearby coffee shop that stayed open late. We sat at a corner table, 2 cups of coffee between us, like a buffer zone. For several minutes, Lindsay could not meet my eyes, staring instead at her hands once manicured to perfection, now showing chipped nail polish. "Jack left," she finally said, as if that single fact should explain her presence. "When Daddy Company started having problems, he just disappeared. No goodbye, nothing. Just stopped returning my calls." I remained silent, waiting for whatever she had really come to say. The coffee between us cooled, untouched. "I lost everything," Lindsay continued, a tremor in her voice. "The condo Jack and I moved into, I could not afford the payments after he left. My job at Daddy Company is gone, now that the company is being dismantled. Even my family." She paused, swallowing hard. "My family blames me. They say if I had stayed with you, none of this would have happened. That you were the stable one after all." "And is that why you are here?" I asked quietly. "Because I turned out to be the better financial prospect. After all," Lindsay flinched as if I had slapped her. "No, I mean, I have had time to think, to realize what I threw away. You were always good to me, always supportive. I took that for granted. I was stupid and shallow and influenced by my family. I thought status and money were everything, but now that they are gone." She reached across the table, trying to take my hand. "I miss you. I miss us. I think I still love you. I always did, even when I convinced myself otherwise." I gently withdrew my hand from her reach. "There is no us anymore, Lindsay. You made sure of that in the cruelest way possible." Tears spilled down her cheeks. I know it was awful. Daddy planned the whole thing. He thought it would be easier for me if you were humiliated, if you got angry and fought the divorce. He did not expect you to just accept it and walk away with dignity." "Of course he did not," I said. "Your father never understood dignity. He never understood me." We sat in silence for a long moment. Part of me, a small part I was not proud of, felt vindicated seeing her reduced to this state, begging for a second chance. But the larger part felt only sadness for the wasted years, the love that had been poisoned by materialism and family pressure. "I have something I need to say to you," I finally told her. "I forgive you." She looked up in surprise, hope flaring in her reddened eyes. "I forgive you," I continued, "but I do not want you back. What happened between us taught me something important. I spent years trying to prove my worth to you and your family when I should have been with someone who already saw that worth. Someone who would have stood by me through the struggles of building my company, who would have celebrated my success because it was mine, not because of what it could buy or the status it could provide." "But I still love you," she insisted, desperation edging her voice. "No, you do not," I said gently. "You love the idea of security. You love not being alone. Those are not the same as loving me for who I am." I paid for our untouched coffee and stood. "I truly hope you find happiness, Lindsay. I hope you use this experience to become a better person. But that journey is yours to make alone." As I walked her back to her car, she asked quietly, "Are you seeing anyone new?" The question surprised me with its mundanity, after everything that had passed between us. "Not yet," I answered honestly. "But I am open to the possibility now. I am ready for something real." Lindsay nodded, fresh tears spilling. "I really am sorry," she whispered, as she got into her car, "for everything." I watched her drive away, feeling a complex mix of emotions, but predominantly relief. The chapter was finally closed. I could move forward, unburdened by what might have been. 1 year has passed since the day Lindsay and her family orchestrated my public humiliation. My company has grown beyond my wildest expectations, with offices in 3 cities and a team of 50 talented individuals who share my vision. We recently declined an acquisition offer that would have made me wealthy beyond measure, choosing instead to maintain control of our creation and see how far we can take it. I ran into Amanda Lindsay's sister at a charity event last month. She approached me cautiously, apologizing profusely for her role in what she now called the intervention. She told me Lindsay had moved to a small town in Colorado, working as a marketing coordinator for a local business. According to Amanda, Lindsay was slowly rebuilding her life, learning to live within modest means and developing relationships based on authenticity rather than status. Robert Williams was sentenced to 5 years in prison for financial fraud. Diane sold their mansion and most of their assets to pay legal fees and settlements. The mighty Williams empire had crumbled under the weight of its own corruption and artifice. As for me, I have begun dating again, taking things slowly with a woman I met through volunteer work at a local coding academy for underprivileged youth. Rachel is kind, genuine, and accomplished in her own right. She laughs at my terrible jokes and challenges me intellectually. Most importantly, she values me for exactly who I am, not who she wishes I could be or what I could provide. I have also reconnected with my parents, spending holidays in Oregon and bringing them to visit the city more often. Their simple pride in my accomplishments, untainted by expectations or conditions, reminds me of what real familial love looks like. The greatest lesson I learned through this ordeal was about self-worth. For years, I allowed Lindsay and her family to define my value based on their warped, materialistic standards. I tried to earn the respect of people who were fundamentally incapable of respecting anyone who did not fit their narrow definition of success. The moment I walked away from that toxic dynamic was the moment I reclaimed my power and set myself free. Pain can be transformative if we allow it to be. The public humiliation Lindsay orchestrated became the catalyst for my greatest period of growth, both professionally and personally. Sometimes the people who try to break us inadvertently give us the opportunity to rebuild ourselves stronger than before. If you are going through something similar, remember that how others treat you says more about them than it does about you. Your worth is not determined by someone else. Perception, especially someone whose values are questionable at best. The right people will value you for who you truly are, not what you can provide or how you make them look to others. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to something better in your life? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life experiences and lessons learned the hard way. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the end of one chapter is just the beginning of a better one. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you directly to what you truly need.